Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to take a quick look at 3 pens. Now these 3 pens, they're all Duofold style pens. First one I've got is a Jinhao 100 Centennial. I love the finish on this, it's quite unusual. We'll then take a look at the Kaigelu 316. And then the third pen by Moonman, the Moonman M600S. I'd have loved to have compared these against a Parker Duofold. I just can't afford one. So join me now down on the mat. Let's take a look at these. We'll do some writing samples. Then I'll give you my thoughts on them. Welcome down to the mat. So here are the 3 pens we're going to be taking a look at. We've got the Jinhao 100 Centennial. This is the meteorite pattern. This cost me 15 Australian dollars. We've got a Kaigelu 316. This is in the Aloe pattern, and this cost me 24 Australian dollars. Then we've got the Moonman M600S. This is in the blue colour, and this cost 25 Australian dollars. So these pens, they're all in that more affordable price range. Straight off, we can see one big difference. The Moonman is longer by about ½ centimetre. Can't really see much of a difference when I'm writing with it, but we'll look at the lengths unposted in a second. When we look at the bodies, they're all very much a similar shape. Let's start at the cap. So I'm just going to show you the tops of the cap. So on the Jinhao, we've got a logo there. There we are. That's like a chariot with a horse in the front. The Kaigelu, we've got a kangaroo. On the Moonman, that's just blank. Just line these up again. There we go. I'm trying my best to keep them lined up at the top of the cap, so that's what I'm using my rule for. So at the end of the caps, we can see again different shapes. With the Jinhao, that's more or less straight. There's a little bit of a taper, but it's quite hard to see. With the Kaigelu, it's got more of a dome where the logo is, and then it tapers down. And with the Moonman, we've just got a straight taper straight down. The clips, 3 different clip types, although they're all very similar, aren't they, in one respect. And the Jinhao is the only one I can easily get my finger on there to click it. If we come down the caps, they're all the same width. The bands there, we've got a little bit of a difference. So on the Jinhao, it's just a straight full band. On the Kaigelu, we've got 2 gold coloured bands and then a little bit of black in between them. And on the Moonman, we've got 2 gold coloured bands, and I can see the actual resin, the acrylic there between it. The bottom of the cap with the Jinhao, it's got that metal there, and it looks like it's slightly tapering down to the body. The Kaigelu, we've got the resin with that taper, and similar there with the Moonman. Looking at the bodies, well, again, the bodies all very similar. We've got meteorite pattern, a low pattern, and a blue pattern. Other than that, though, I'm just going to turn around the Moonman one, because that's one there. Let's turn around the Aloe one. You know, the patterns are quite nice. Some translucency to the Kaigelu one. You can see there the converter. And then there's the Jinhao. Of the patterns, I've got to be honest, I like the Moonman one. I think that looks really nice. To me, it draws my eye in. I'm going to take off the caps. So we'll start with the Jinhao. So that's 1, 2, 2.5, just under 3 turns. Kaigelu, 1, 2, there's 2.5, just under 3 turns. And with the Moonman, there's 1, there's 2, 2.5, again just under 3 turns. So again, we're keeping that similarity. Well, let's look at the nibs. Now this isn't exact comparison this time. With the Jinhao 100, that's got the Jinhao nib it came with. With the Kaigelu 316, that's got the Kaigelu nib it came with. With the Moonman M600S, this has got a Kaigelu long knife nib. We'll look a bit at that when we do our writing sample. They're all number 6 size nibs. They're all easy to swap the nibs out, which is why I've done that already on that Moonman. When we look at them uncapped like this, that size difference with the Moonman M600S, it goes away. So that makes me wonder then, is the extra length something to do with the cap? Although when we saw the caps, they all looked very similar size as well. But definitely, again, I'll just fetch my ruler in just so you can see. I've lined up all the nibs, and now all the pens are roughly the same length. Inside each pen is a cartridge converter. I'm not going to take them all off. There's the 100. They've all got metal fittings as well. Section wise, again we can see some small differences. They all go slightly in, and then we've got this nice flare out. That gives you a lip for your finger. It's nice and wide on the Jinhao. It's a bit squarer on the Kaigelu. The Moonman one looks very similar to the Jinhao one to me. The Kaigelu section, again by my eyes, looks ever so slightly narrower than on the others. I'm going to try posting these pens now. Here we are with the pens posted. To me, none of them post very well, and they make them really long and clumsy there. I'll just show you there with the M600. But I find unposted, these are all nice usable lengths. Just going to clear this away. I'm going to fetch my scales and we'll just do some weight comparisons. So here are my scales of weighing. We'll start with the Jinhao. So the full pen is 28 grams. The cap is 12 grams. The body, about 15 grams. Remember, these have got some ink in it. Kaigelu 316, 41 grams, substantially heavier. The cap, 16 grams. The cap alone here is more than the body of the Jinhao. And then the body, 26 grams, which is almost the same as the total weight for that Jinhao. The Moonman, 28 grams with the cap, 10 grams, and 18 grams for the body. So when we look at this, we've got the Jinhao and the Moonman more or less the same in terms of weight, whereas that Kaigelu 316, that's definitely heavier. Now, I aren't using it today. I do have a Kaigelu 316A, which is a slightly updated model of the 316. That is more or less on par with the other two's weight as well. So for this particular model, this 316, definitely a lot heavier than the other two. We get rid of this, and I'll fetch in my notepad of testing. So here I've got my notepad of testing. This is a black and red A5 notebook. It's using Oxford optic paper, which is paper I really enjoy, and I find is nice and fountain pen friendly. Let's start our writing with the Jinhao. So we have here the Jinhao, that hard start, that I think is because I've just had the caps on and off so much. I'm just going to put 100. It's a Centennial. The nib is a medium. And as we said, this was 15 Australian dollars. The ink is by Robert Oster. And it's Cosmic Swirl. I love this ink. It's not exactly a perfect colour match from the pen, but the pen's pattern is meteorite. Cosmic Swirl, meteorite, both astronomical things, so that's why I thought, well, I'd go with that. Drying times. This is immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Finally, 1 minute. After a minute, still smudging ever so slightly. Let's go for a 2-minute test. I'm just going to do it on the line above. 2 minutes, still smudging a little bit. So as a combo at the moment this appears really wet. I'm going to move the mic to the paper so you can hear the pen writing. That's nice. I can see quite a fair bit of shading coming through in there. Line variation with some pressure now. So you can squeeze a little bit out, but it's a steel nib. It's fairly stiff, so you don't get that much. And then my flow test. I'm squeezing them up today because I want to get all three pens on the same sheet of paper if I can, just so when we come to the end we can see a little bit of each on the same sheet. But yeah, the flow's nice. I love the shading that I'm seeing coming through here. You know, we can see the lighter bits there on the C, on the O part of the T. Looks really nice. The nib does feel like it's scratching a bit when I'm using it. There's a fair bit of feedback. I haven't done anything to this nib yet because it's not enough for me to be really worried about it, but there's that scratchiness. But depending on what you like, I actually find it fairly enjoyable. So that was the Jinhao 100 Centennial in this gorgeous meteorite pattern. So writing now for pen number 2, the Kaigelu 316. I'm going to call out before we start. There's very little ink in here, so I'm hoping that it will last through the test. So we have here a Kaigelu 316. Again, it's a medium nib. This was 24 Australian dollars. The ink is by Robert Oster. And it's Vine Leaf. Drying times. Immediate 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, a little bit of a smudge. So as a combo, it's definitely less wet than a Jinhao 100. Let's move the mic and we'll write our sentence. That nib, it's a lot smoother. It feels a little bit like I'm writing on a sheet of glass. My personal preference, I don't like it. It's too smooth. But again, I've not worried about it because it writes nicely. So, you know, I just put up with that. Let's look at line variation. No pressure. And then with some pressure. Okay, not a lot in the way of line variation. Wasn't expecting it. And then flow. Let's hope the ink keeps up. Yep, that makes it all the way across. But as I said, there's no ink in here now. It's completely dry. This, after I finish this video, that will be getting cleared out. And then that'll be put away into storage for a while. So that is the Kaigelu 316. Just going to move the paper slightly so that we can get the whole of the bottom of the page on there. Pen number 3, Moonman M600S. This time it's got that Kaigelu long knife nib though. So we've got here Moonman M600S. I'm just going to abbreviate it, Kaigelu long knife. The pen itself was 25 Australian dollars, but obviously I paid extra for the nib. The ink, to complete the trifecta, is by Robert Oster. And it's Spearmint. I'm surprised with this ink. I've had this, only a sample, I've had it for ages, and I didn't get into a pen, so I thought, well, I'm going to try it, because although this is a blue body, I thought, well, let's see what it's like with this fairly nice darker green ink, and I love the combo. Let's look at drying times, so immediate. Seems a lot drier already. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Not a lot of smudging. We'll go for 1 minute now. After a minute, teeny little bit of smudging still coming off the bottom. Now, I've just checked this because this isn't the type of experience I was getting when I was doing my tests for this. And this is another pen. It's out of ink, which is why I'm not getting the same amount of ink that I was when I was doing my testing before. So this is another one after this video will be cleaned out. Line variation. This is one where we should see something. So my straight down lines. Then my lines going across. So down and across. As I say, we're running out of ink now. This nib, hopefully I can get this onto the camera. Let me see. It's very difficult to see. Let me try and get it there in the center of the camera. Then I can zoom in a little bit. So this long knife, what we've got is we've got a different width going down as we have across. Not really seeing it on here. On my tests, when there's more ink in the pen, it's a lot more obvious. Let me just do, as I said, look, the ink's virtually gone. Oh, we've got a little bit. Let's see, can we get across with some fleur? Hopefully it'll last. And then I'll get some S's out now. Not really. Isn't this embarrassing when the pen doesn't do what you want it to do? I can't even get my sentence out of this because I've run out of ink. I'm sorry about that. Let me see very quickly if I can find this writing in my Tomoe River notebook. So here it is in my Tomoe River notebook. This is 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. You can see here where we've got slight little bit more thickness when I'm doing my line variation. And when I'm writing, you can really see the character coming out. But this is the Moonman M600S. Just reposition the paper so we've got all three in there, and I'll fetch the pens back. So as I said, the best laid plans of men and mice go out the window as soon as you start pressing that record button. We've got the Jinhao 100. Nice pen. I like this pattern. One of the nice things with the Jinhao 100, there's lots of different colours and pattern available. I've got 3 of these at the moment. Really enjoy them. The Kaigelu 316. Again, there's not quite as wide a variety of colours. And I actually quite like the 316A. I do have a 316A. Why we've not used it today, it ran out of ink last week, so I cleaned it out and put it away. I did think about re-inking it, but I've got something like 36 pens at the moment which have got ink in. So I want to try and reduce that number down to maybe, under 10 would be perfect. This one will be cleaned out today as well, so getting towards that goal of under 10. Still a long way to go. The M600S, of the 3 pens, this, I've got to be honest, is the one I think looks nicest. The only thing with this pen, not as much in terms of colour. So if you want to have a wide variety of colours, that's where this one is let down. I like the Kaigelu long knife nib in here. Again, let me fetch in my Tomoe River paper just so you can see it in there. I think it looks really nice. To me, it has a lot more character when I'm writing than I see with the other pens. We get thicker lines, we get thinner lines, we get a lot of shading coming through. Really enjoyable. Of the other two pens, the 100, as I said already, very scratchy. I don't mind it because I like some feedback. I like tactileness when I'm writing. It still puts down a nice line. It still writes well. So in that respect, I'm not worried about it because the pen works. I enjoy using it. The Kaigelu, bit like writing on glass, very, very smooth. Again, I've not worried about it too much because I still enjoy using it. Guess what? Lets me do what I want. If we look at the writing, I know not really much to look at the bottom one, but the writing of the three, I see a lot of shading coming out in that 316. I like the colour of this ink. I've only got a sample of Vine Leaf, and I think I may end up getting a full bottle of this because it's a nice green, it's vibrant, but I say we see all this character, we see all this shading coming through. So my three pens that we've been looking at, the Jinhao 100, the Kaigelu 316, and the M600. I'm not going to call them clones or knockoffs, but they are definitely heavily inspired by the Parker Duofold. They all write nicely. As I said, I've got 3 of the 100s. I've got 2 of the 316s, if you count the 316A. I've only got the one M600S, but I enjoy writing with them all. As I say, 2 are out of ink now, haven't performed exactly as I would like in my tests, but there's enough there that you get the idea, you can see how they work. If I was to buy another one, I would go for, I don't know, I think I'd go for another 316 next, because I've already got 3 different 100s. But it would be a bit of a tight draw between the 316 and the 100. I think it would depend on what the pen looked like, because quite often, when you know what the pen performs like, you're buying them for looks, and you might be buying them to use with a specific colour ink, and that could lead towards your decision. But I do think all 3 of these pens, they're well worth investing in. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on these pens? Do you have a Duofold? Are you able to compare these types of pens against the actual original? I'd love to get your comments and your feedback on that. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like. Every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.